Hey, everybody, welcome to Scalable and Saleable, where we find out what great entrepreneurs have done to scale their businesses. Stay right here for the next few minutes to leverage validated methodologies for growth and create a way more scalable and sellable business for yourself. Let's get started. Thank you again for being here. Would you mind telling our audience a little bit more about who you are and what your business is?
Sure. Hi, Jeff. Good morning, first of all. My name is John Evans. I'm the founder and CEO of a company called Catalyst Gem. So Catalyst Gem is a technology platform that really disrupts the international student recruitment space. It's a high growth industry, but also very fragmented and disintermediated. So essentially our technology platform helps international students and their families on their study abroad journey by really digitally matching them with the right schools and programs, and also helping them with other elements of their journey, whether it's accessing scholarships or financial aid or student loans or test preparation. And students are able to complete and solve a lot of their problems on our platform.
It's awesome. My 16-year-old daughter and her best friend were just talking about what country they want to go to college together in.
Oh, fantastic.
So yeah, we'll probably be tapping into your tech. What do you attribute your growth to?
Well, really, I started the company, or I founded the company just over 2 years ago, and this was, mid-pandemic, and I previously worked as, vice president of a global publishing group, helping client institutions scale enrollment. So really, I looked at, my prior experience, which was 3 decades in this space, and I really looked at how could I utilize technology to solve problems? And I felt that the biggest problem was really that you had international students and their families making enormous financial and future decisions, and really placing high dependence on third parties who didn't necessarily align with their interests. So because in our industry we have global network of agents. If you just think about the travel industry, for example, what it used to look like, you'd have all these small travel agents scattered everywhere. It's the same in education. So but many of these agents charge a lot of money, and they'll tend to send students to school where they make the most money, not necessarily what's the best fit for the student. So I felt that technology was a way to really level the field, create more transparency, and ensure that students could make the right decisions themselves just by having access to the information that they needed to do so.
Yeah, disrupting. Cool. I'm sure you've learned a lot over the last couple of years, and from your VP experience for all those decades. If you were coming into a brand new company today, what would be some of the first things that you think you would look into to start growing it?
Well, just to put some context, this is the 3rd company that I've actually helped launch and build. So I think, ultimately, the entrepreneurial journey is a tough one, and it's not for everybody, of course. I mean, there's a lot of pain and downside, particularly in the early years to being an entrepreneur. I mean, the biggest being, of course, not having that regular paycheck. But I think, just based on my own experience, I mean, just understanding the market, researching the market, making sure that you have alignment in terms of the problem that you're trying to solve, and also that it's a big enough problem. Because of course, a lot of people will launch tech companies on the belief that they can raise a lot of capital, and but the reality is, I mean, probably only 1% of companies actually do raise capital that way. So really making sure that you're financially prepared, not for just a 3-month runway, but for 2-3 years is really key.
And here's the spoiler alert: it always takes about twice as long as you thought it would, and costs about twice as much as you thought it would, and you make about half as much as you thought you would at the beginning. Not always, but what do you feel most small business owners do wrong?
Um, I think it's just down to poor planning. I mean, again, even when I look outside of technology, of course, I mean, in other industries, I mean, yeah, I feel that for example, I know people that opened up restaurants because they thought they like going out, and so I think having the underpinning knowledge is important, having the research to validate that that there is an opportunity there, and ultimately planning financially so you ensure that in 6 months you're not having to just give it up because you've run out of cash. You forecasted that would be part of your journey, and I think of course many entrepreneurs are by their true nature overly optimistic. So what's really helped me personally is having a good CFO who just kind of sees the world through a different lens, and brings back that kind of sense of reality into planning as well.
Mm. Has there been a book that's been most influential that you've read or listened to?
Well, I mean, I've read plenty of different books, relating to entrepreneurship over the years. I think the book that I'm currently reading, though, is been very interesting. It's called The Gap and the Gain, and I can't remember the author. You'll have to look that up. But essentially, it's talking about really being in that moment of today, not just thinking about 5 years ahead, and being miserable because you haven't reached that point that you wanted to. Because as an entrepreneur, I want to scale a big company, but I can't base my the next 5 years of my life on that, because I'll disregard everything, including my family, in the process. Mm-hmm. So it's just about learning about the everyday wins, about the fact that progress is being in the gain and not in the gap, and the gap is the kind of negative part where you're kind of not living in the moment. So I found that really inspirational, particularly at this stage of my journey with Catalyst Gem.
Yeah, that's well said. If you could go back in time to when you first started out 3 startups ago and say one thing to younger you, what would you say?
Experience is good. Making mistakes is important, but learning from them is even more important.
Yeah. What question should I be asking you that I haven't?
I think again, the one thing that you learn about about when you're building a company, Jeff, is that there's got to be some desired goal in mind, and and it's not always necessary I want to build $100 million company, because not everybody does that, right? I mean, I think it's more about what are the other objectives you have in mind when you build a company. And for me, it starts a lot simpler. It's about, of course, the benefit of entrepreneurship can be that I dictate my time schedule. I mean, for example, before the pandemic, I was spending 70% of my life overseas. Now I've got the choice where I see more of my family than ever, because I've made this choice, and now I have the freedom and flexibility to do so. So I think it's important of reminding yourself daily, and I've got them written on the wall, by the way, in terms of why I'm doing this, because there are many tough, dark moments in the early days, but I continue to remind myself why I'm doing this, and it keeps me motivated and on track.
Yeah, that's awesome. Any parting words of advice and wisdom for the entrepreneurs watching that are in the trenches, scaling right now?
Look, you took a decision to jump in, and whatever triggered you to do that has brought you here today. So I think, again, surround yourself with good people, take criticism constructively, because the biggest thing that you cannot afford as an entrepreneur is an ego. So if you've got good people around you that are giving you advice, learn to listen. I mean, listening is probably the most important skill you can have as an entrepreneur. Because an entrepreneur, we can talk a lot, we can talk about the big vision and everything, but listening is so much more important.
And it's so hard for us to do as entrepreneurs with ADD and chasing ideas and opportunities all over the
Sure.
place. The hardest thing for us to do is sit still and listen sometimes. So that is
Exactly.
good advice.